Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another special edition of the show with a very special guest. We haven't seen him in a few years, and he just let me know it's been 5 years since he's been here. Please welcome guitarist, vocalist of King Crimson, and solo artist Jakko Jakszyk. How are you, my friend? Good to
Well,
see
I'm hanging on in there.
you. I see you're surrounded by all sorts of cool stuff there. What is that guitar to your behind your left shoulder? Yeah, what's that all
Oh,
about?
this is really cool. When my last album came out, Paul Reed Smith, the PRS of PRS, phoned me up out of the blue just to say how much he liked the record and how did I do it. And it was a very nice phone call. I ended the phone call, and then half an hour later, the factory phoned me and said, "Paul's asked us to make you a new guitar." I went, "Oh, okay." And I said, "What can I? Whatever you want." So he made this guitar to my spec, and a friend of mine's an album sleeve designer, and I spent an afternoon with him. He said, "What guitars did you love when you were a kid?" And I said, "Well, I was obsessed with the Eric Clapton painted SG, the
Oh,
full
yes.
SG.
Yep.
And also, I used to love the cover of Axis Bold as Love." And he said, "Oh, I've got a great idea." And he pulled out this book which is lots of products from India in the 60s and 70s, like poppadom packets and rice and stuff. And he made this extraordinary collar. That's what this is.
Wow.
Uh, and there's a little in joke there. You probably can't see it, but that's my Lego figure right in the middle there. And he also came up with this amazing logo. And the factory called me and said, it's lovely, but it's too big to put in this small space here. And they said, but it seemed a shame not to use it, so we thought we'd put it on the back of the neck. So I don't know if you can see
Wow,
that.
look at that. I love the color of the wow,
Yeah,
the
it's great,
purple
isn't
is
it?
amazing. Oh,
So that was the main guitar on the album. I used it for virtually all of the album.
that's nice. I tell you, he makes really good guitars.
It does. They're great, and
I have two of them myself, and I quite like them a lot. I know some people complain about them, but I think there is a growing number of of guitar players who really, really value the craftsmanship on his guitars. Whether
yeah,
the SE line or the top of the line stuff, I think it's quality all across the map.
yeah, they feel like they kind of almost feel like vintage instruments, but they're modern and reliable, and they've got a great mixture of Gibson and so yeah, I've been very lucky. I mean, if you did see Crimson, so you'll have seen the one they made me with the
Yep.
cover of the first Crimson album on too. So
In fact, if I remember correctly, I think when you were on here the last time, you showed me that guitar. If I remember
that's right. I'm
correctly.
only ever going to do interviews with you when I've got a new guitar to show you. So
That's it works out that way, right? And I think for you, I think the great thing about Paul Reed Smith guitars, especially if you're a gigging musician, I mean, they're very light. They're just so comfortable to play, and it's not like I mean, I love Les Pauls too. I have a bunch of them, and they're heavy, but the Paul Reed Smith is like 7 pounds, eight tops maybe, and it just feels
yeah,
like up in there.
this is reasonably heavy, but it's nowhere near a Les Paul as you
Yeah.
point out.
Yeah. So anyway, now that we got the see, Jocko, normally we do the gear talk at the end, but we got that out of the way first. So, but we do have something specific that you're here for today, and that's to talk about Son of Glen, your brand new release on Inside Out Records, Inside Out Music, and this follows the previous one from 5 years ago, like you
Yeah,
mentioned, and this also comes on the heels of your autobiography, which is called "Who's the Boy with the Lovely Hair," and
yeah,
I apparently a lot of the lyrical themes on this album are kind of inspired by the book. So maybe you can kind of talk a little bit about the book first, and
yeah.
then how the album kind of came out of all of that.
Okay, well, I did a one-man show in Edinburgh, which was based on a thing I did for the BBC back in the 90s, which was a piece of music, really, but using speech as part of the composition. And I interviewed my adoptive father, who was Polish, my adoptive mother, who was French, and but my real mother was Irish and quite a well-known singer in the 50s. And I went back to Ireland and met people that knew her back then. So we did this one-man show, and it's an extraordinary story if you encapsulate my adoptive parents' story and my mum's story and everything. And that's really what grew the attention to the story, and I got offered a book deal. So the book is, on the one hand, it is a memoir of a reasonably successful musician. That's meant to be me. And and there are hilarious anecdotes and a fair amount of name dropping. Indeed, there's a chapter title which is Michael Jackson Likes My Shoes. However, what I've intertwined or felt very important to lace the book with was also the other journey, and that's to do with identity and adoption and abandonment, and it's to do with nature versus nurture, and the book it starts, in fact, in Arkansas, where my Irish mother, I eventually found her living there because she'd married an American serviceman who wasn't my father. And that's a whole other thing. I had these siblings who had, compared to me, had beliefs I found unpalatable and quite extreme. And I was confronted with that idea that had I not been adopted, had I been brought up there, well, then maybe I'd have thought those same things that I find abhorrent.
Very likely, right? Yeah.
Well, it's that whole thing about, how much of who we are is innately who we are, and
Oh,
how much of it is environment, et cetera, et cetera. So that's running through the book. And the book ends eventually because I tried to find my real father. My mother wouldn't tell me stuff, and she threw in lots of red herrings and lots of lies. And so I eventually, in fact, the year I would have spoken to you, I got this this dossier which told me exactly what happened. And it was quite different to the narrative that my real mother had given me.
wow.
And I also had the real name of the first time I'd seen it written down, the name of my father. And I employed an extraordinary woman called Mia Bennett, who's a genealogist, and was on the research team of a TV show, which I think you have out there too, called Who Do You Think You Are?
Yep.
And she found him. So I only really found out who my father was 3 or 4 years ago, and it turned out he was also an American airman from Madison County in Missouri, and so I finished the book, which was a gargantuan task. It's quite a long book. It's about 380,000 words, and it was cathartic. It was sad. It was a real roller coaster emotionally. And I'd already been asked to make another album by the label, and Thomas, the label head, made a point of saying, "Look, don't follow any preconceptions. Just do what you do, write what you write." And in a way, that was a negative thing, because then I thought, oh well, I don't know what to do, and I kind of lost a lot of self-confidence. But I'd been working on an album with the very lovely, beautiful, incredibly talented Louise Patricia Crane, an album called Netherworld, which I urge anyone who's not heard it to seek it out, because it's an amazing record, beautifully put together by her, and a great kind of conceptual idea. And we worked on that a lot, and I ended up kind of doing things that were kind of from my past that I'd never utilized in my own music, I guess, things that were part of my kind of DNA growing up. And then we were having dinner one evening, talking about the book, and she pointed out something that I guess was kind of obvious, but I hadn't crossed my mind. In that she said, "Look, the reason why you're even here and exist is that your dad fell in love with a dark-haired Irish singer, and you've kind of done the same, And I thought, oh, yeah. And so she kind of came up with this idea, this concept of, I found out that my father had died aged 36 in 1973. So I'd never met him, So she came up with this kind of fantasy idea of him, watching over me throughout this whole period. And that's really that's what started the record. It started off with that idea of hers and the title, and then I started writing this thing. I know it sounds like a terrible cliche, but it was one of those things where I just had a couple of guitar chords, and then it turned into this 10-minute epic, and it kind of felt like it was writing itself. And then it just seemed obvious to make the album a kind of companion piece to the book. So and with that open-ended thing from the head of the label of, don't feel that you have to specifically try and be stylistically this, that, or the other. So I wrote what I wrote. And the lyrics were important, and. It's a long answer to a very simple question. I do apologize.
No, no, not at all, not at all. And you know, it's funny because even before I started listening to the album, and I was because I'm big on like packaging and album
Yeah.
artwork and things like that. So you're like looking at, and you could tell how much of a personal album this was for you, based on everything you see, just simply by opening this up and looking at all the artwork here, all the photographs and things on the wall and whatnot, and then the picture of the two of you on the front.
Yeah,
So.
well, I've got to give Louise credit for that. She took all the pictures, came up with the idea that that amazing location was a place that she knew, and yeah, together with the guy that designed the guitar that I showed you, you know, that the two of them put it together. I can't really take much credit for it. She took those amazing pictures too. So it's a real, you know, dedication to her. You know, the whole record really.
You mentioned a minute or so ago about how the label said to you, you know, don't worry about what style the music and just do what comes natural and
Yeah.
whatever. And I know you watched my review. One of the things that I mentioned is that there are lots of different styles and flavors on this album, and it's not like, oh, Yakko's on Inside Out. Of course, it has to be a prog album, right? And while there are lots of prog rock elements on here, there's other things going on here, and I think really good things. I mean, there are just off the top of my head, somewhere between then and now, and I told you so is a great song. I
Oh,
mean,
thank
that's like a song that should be played on radio. It's so infectious. It's got such a great chorus. And I remember the first time I heard it, I'm like, I want to hear that again. That's a really great, groovy, just kind of feel good, pick me up, catchy song. And that's not really what I expected on here, but it works.
Yeah, I think there was a, you know, with that directive from Thomas, I kind of avoided the kind of voice in the back of my head saying, well, you know, you're in King Crimson, you better put something in there that's, I thought, well, no, I don't want to kind of, that would be, that would be disloyal to the innate thing of it.
Right.
It came out as it came out. And as you point out, there are moments that do sound a bit like that,
Oh
but
yeah.
it wasn't driven by that at all. It was driven by the material and, you know, and the approach and the encouragement of Louise, and yeah, it's all of those things. You know, she was kind of like the A&R really, and so you know, her response to stuff was very important to the final thing, really.
And you, I mean, you work with some folks on this album, but for the most, you handle the bulk of everything yourself for the most part. Like we've got Gavin's on here as well.
Yeah,
You know, Louise is here. Zoltan Soares is on here. So you've got a few people, but for the most part,
uh,
you're doing the bulk of things.
yeah. It's Ian Mosley playing drums on the track that you like as well from Marillion.
Right.
Again, you know, because we see each other socially. I think on previous records, I've taken much longer to make the record, and I've asked other people but this once I kind of got that opening track, I actually made it reasonably quickly. And I didn't really ask people that, as I say, you know, Ian said, oh, well, you know, if you want me to play on, I said, oh, yeah, great. And Gavin, you know, I've known Gavin for, yeah, he's one of my oldest friends. And I don't really like asking him to do stuff at this stage, you know. But I played him the version of the track with fake drums, and he said, "Oh, I really like this. You know, do you want me to play on it?" Well, yes, please. Yeah. So, but other than that, yeah, I did most of it myself, apart from the bass playing, which is my son, who's great. He's got a great vibe, great feel. Plus, he's cheap and local because he lives in my house. So, but he's a genuinely very good musician, very tasteful.
And just so you know what we were talking about before we started taping, Jocko was telling me how in his neighborhood area is lots of prog rock royalty. So he's literally got folks that we all listen to living very close to him, and that's kind of cool, I think.
Yeah. I said to you earlier, Robert used to call it the Crimson Triangle because Gavin lives about 20 minutes away. Mel Collins lives about 20 minutes away. There's a guy called Danny Thompson, very famous double bass player, who lives just up the road from Mel, in fact. Steve Wilson used to live about 5 minutes away. He's moved. He's recently moved. And then Marillion are from this neck of the woods. I live in Hertfordshire, and they're all in a town called Aylesbury or thereabouts, which is the next county. But it's 20 minutes that way. So yeah, it's quite a fertile area around here.
Uh, some really nice guitar soloing on this album and textures and things for folks. A lot of cool keyboard tones, Mellotron, all that sort of thing. So there are those Crimson-y moments. Like the title track, the closing title track, probably to me, to my ears anyway, is the most kind of like Crimson-ish sort of song on here. But there's elements out here, but just more importantly, it's just good songs and really good memorable songs. It's moody, it's uplifting in spots. I think that folks will be pleasantly surprised by this album for the diversity that it has. Not that your prior album wasn't, but I think this one just kind of surprised me because it is so accessible in spots but still has the challenging little musical bits that I think you're known for.
Well, thank you. Your review was very kind. I was very chuffed by that. Thank you very much. Yeah, listen, I think you can go down an alleyway, can't you, where you've got guys who are virtuosos, who, can play anything and are brilliant musicians. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to come up with interesting music. Frank Zappa was a genius, but part of his genius was within the challenging musical landscape were these amazing tunes.
Yeah.
I mean, he wrote amazing, memorable, incredible. Even if they were difficult to play, they were musically fantastic. And I think it. I'm trying to hang on to that too. There's some of the kind of more neo prog stuff that I don't know. It's either got that kind of technical aspect or it's self-referential. Growing up where I did, I saw a lot of bands from that era when I was quite young. The Gabriel-led Genesis I probably saw more times than any other band, because they used to play in the kind of home counties. And you had all these bands that were actually very different, and they brought to it their own kind of disparate influences, as opposed to this, the kind of more modern things that I hear where they're referencing that as a thing. But there are some amazing young bands too that my son has played me, and yes, there's a lot of music out there, though, isn't there? So
For sure. Well, you got to see Genesis, Gabriel era Genesis, boy. Oof. That
yeah,
would
no,
have been a bucket list thing for me, but it wasn't on
yeah.
the cards, unfortunately.
There was a little club they used to play, and you'd be like 150, 200 people, and that's before Nursery Crime came out. So, but it was that
Wow.
that lineup was Steve Hackett and Pete
So when
Pardo.
when him and Phil first joined.
Yeah,
Ugh,
exactly. Yeah, it's amazing. It's
yeah,
amazing.
that's such a great time period.
Yeah,
So
totally.
now that the King Crimson touring machine is not really happening right now, we'll get back to King Crimson in a minute. Do
Okay.
you have any desire to like kind of go out and play some of this stuff live? Is that in the works?
Well, funnily enough, I'm doing just me solo, which I'm absolutely petrified about, incidentally. I'm playing at the weekend. There's a festival in England called Latitude, um, and I'm in some dark corner just doing. I'm there for a couple of days, so I'm doing that, and US visa permitting, I'm meant to be doing what will be my first ever tour as a solo artist in October in the States,
Wow.
opening for Steve Morse. Um, so yeah, fingers crossed that I can make that work. As I say, the process of getting an American work visa
Yeah,
is
right now it's a little crazy. Yeah.
well, it was always tough, but now it's even tougher. So we will see. But that's the plan. And I I wasn't going to do that, and I just thought, well, maybe this will kickstart me doing it. It'll be a challenge, and we will see. And if
That
it
would be a
works,
great bill. That's, I mean, I always try to catch Steve when he tours. I've had Steve here on the channel a few times, and he's a
yeah.
wonderful person, and I think that would be a great bill. I would love to see that. So
Well,
hopefully that happens. You guys play in the New York area, and I'll get to go see you.
yeah, I've got the dates somewhere. I think there is a show in Manhattan, but also there's some stuff that I think might be near you too. So I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
Okay, that sounds good. So getting back to King Crimson. So I mentioned that the King
Yes, I
Crimson
need.
touring machine.
Can I need to address something here,
Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
because I have been saying something very similar. Um, Even on stage when we did these things called the raw package, where people would turn up to Crimson shows early, and the manager would speak, Robert would come out and greet them, and then one of the band members would do a Q&A at the end. So I've been talking about this since then, and as far as I'm aware, I've said the same thing every time. And I said it when I was promoting the book last year, and I've been saying it during this album, but one interview has kind of grabbed hold of this, and suddenly it was all over the internet, this whole idea of King Crimson ever, recording a new studio album. And actually, the reality is, for a couple of years, we've been putting together studio versions of the new material. And earlier on this year, the manager said, I think we ought to try and get this finished, So I did a lot of work on that, and then I've passed it on to him. Now, will that come out as a new King Crimson album? I have no idea. Will it come out sporadically with the odd track there? I don't know. I have no idea. That's beyond my pay grade, and nothing to do with the decision that I might make. So the idea that we are, we're seriously got, we've been recording this thing on and off. And I guess it's just to make it a thing, studio versions of the newer material. If it comes out, when it comes out, I have absolutely no idea. So I would like to kind of qualify that, because I see, but I've kind of abandoned the internet really, and I've come off all of the sites. But I got a phone call from Gavin, in fact, saying, "What's all this?" And then I spoke to the manager, and apparently it's all over the net. So I just wanted to make that clear. So.
But material has been worked on and recorded, and it's
yeah, we've done studio versions of all the new stuff. And some other bits and pieces that I've written that we didn't play live, which may or may not be of any use. I don't know. But yeah, while I was doing some of the interviews, I was still in the midst of working on that stuff. But just because I know David Singleton, the manager, has got a pile of things, and I know there's some things that are coming out that we might work on and that we won't, and it was just one of those things,
Yeah.
So,
well, I know fans are excited about this because after all of us have seen you guys play live over the last bunch of years, we would like to hear studio material from that lineup. I think that would be a great, if final release from King Crimson. That would be pretty cool.
I agree, and if I wasn't in the band, I would want that too.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's like a no-brainer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what else is on the horizon for you, like in the very near future? I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff here. So obviously.
Yeah. Well, it's I guess it's just these scary shows I'm doing at the weekend, and
so how's that going to work? Is that you on stage with like a guitar and a keyboard and a microphone? Is that or?
It's me and a guitar and my Helix unit, and I'm using the looper, and it's a nightmare. You press one thing at the wrong time and the whole thing's screwed.
The whole thing's screwed
So
up.
I've been sat here rehearsing it, and there's also a friend of mine who's a reasonably well-known comedian out here who's got this whole section of the festival. So I'm doing some stuff with him as well. He kind of musically illustrating some poetry, and it's a really lovely little festival, and there's always interesting people that you bump into, and but there's some big acts too. Sting is headlining one of the evenings, and a band called Elbow, and I've forgotten who else. But so yeah, so hopefully it won't be the petrifying experience it feels like.
Well, I hope it goes well for you. Yeah, and
well,
for the potential Steve Morse tour, are you bringing a band, or is it going to be something similar to what you're doing?
I want it to be a band, and it's finding the availability. I did have a band for 48 hours, and then the agent said, "Oh, I gave you the wrong dates. It doesn't start on the 25th. It ends on the 25th." And suddenly the band I had were unavailable prior to that. So, and that was one hell of a band, because it was three of the guys out of the Zappa band, Scott Tunis and Mike Keneally, and
oh wow,
Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're great, and they opened for Crimson on some of the shows on the last tour we did, and then one lunchtime Gavin was chatting to them, because clearly they're huge fans of Gavin, because Gavin is arguably the finest drummer of his generation. And he told them that, he said, "Oh, Jakko and I used to do these little local gigs in support of our local music shop, and we used to do a couple of Zappa tunes." And they said, "Oh, which ones?" And so we told them, and they said, "Oh, we still do that one. That's part of our repertoire. Why don't you guys guest with us?" So We guested with them twice, once in New York on Broadway and once and then the last show in Washington. It was such a buzz. It was like the highlight of the tour for me. It was fantastic. We did What's New in Baltimore, and
Oh, great song.
with Gavin on drums and me on guitar. It was fantastic fun. So yeah, so they're lovely blokes and keen to do some work if we can make it happen. So.
Mike Keneally is such an amazing musician. Oh,
Frightening. One of the shows we did in the States, um, Mel Collins and I stood stage right next to him, and what he was doing was absolutely insane. He was playing like the hardest guitar parts you've ever seen, and then within seconds he's pushed the guitar down and he's playing this mad stuff on the keyboard. Just and a nicer man you couldn't hope to meet.
oh,
Fantastic.
he's a wonderful person. Yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't seen him in a while, but I've met Mike on a few occasions, and he's just such a gentleman and such a nice
yeah.
guy. Yeah,
Really lovely guy, an amazing musician, incredible.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah. Cool. Well, you've got lots of stuff going on, which is great. So good to see. For right now, folks, Son of Glen is the brand new album on Inside Out. You can get this anywhere you can get your music. I will put the link to the Inside Out Music Bandcamp page down below for folks who maybe didn't check out the album when I did my review recently. You can go check it out now and consider a purchase. And please go support Jakko. Hopefully, when he does come over here in the States, opening up for Steve Morse, I hope that does happen because that'll be a dynamite tour.
Yeah,
And
I will let you know. I'll let you know.
okay, cool. And check out the autobiography too. That sounds like a great read. So
Yeah, yeah, it's had the most amazing reviews. So yeah, please do.
awesome. Well, great to have
All
all
right,
this wonderful news. So thanks
thank
for
you so
joining us.
much.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure, Jacko. And we hope to see you again soon. And we'll be in touch about the tour. And for everybody watching, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as a post. And please hit the like button before you leave. Son of Glen is the new album. Check it out. For Jakko Jakszyk, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you real soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.